Hello, listeners. This is Joanna Dos Santos from Mindful Counseling, also known as JDS Counseling. So today's topic, we are talking about children and anxiety, along with fear and anger and frustration. And the reason why I bring that topic up is because of how important it is for us as parents, caretakers, educators, to talk to our children about their emotions. And I feel like more so today, and I know some of us are extremely tired hearing this word, but I'm going to say it anyways, COVID, and how children might be reacting to COVID and what has happened during COVID. And the other part, which again is very sensitive topic, is school shootings. And I only bring this up because I never experienced this. And I don't think many of you have experienced this who are close to my age. I was born in 1980s. So school and even as far as I can remember, lockdowns were definitely not something that I remember or ever was faced with, unless my memory doesn't suit me well in this podcast here. But that I don't remember this. I do remember fire drills, but I don't remember lockdowns because there might be an intruder nearby or in the building. So I don't remember that. However, what I do know now is that they exist a lot more. Again, school shootings and how schools prepare and what they do in order to protect themselves, meaning the staff and the educators, the teachers, as well as the children. And I cannot even find myself in a situation, I can imagine, but I cannot imagine myself being in that situation of how I would feel being a teacher, being an educator, being a staff admin who needs to be calm and who needs to now be in a situation that's extremely vulnerable to hide and to let the students hide or protect themselves as well, not knowing necessarily what will happen. So I bring this up also because I've had recent conversations with children and they shared their experiences of the lockdowns, and I'm talking about the little ones. So what they need to do and where they need to hide and how far in the corner of the room they have to hide or where they have to, how low they have to be just to be hiding from the intruder, right? So, and as I'm hearing this coming towards me, I cannot help but to become tearful because I have a daughter, and as I'm hearing this, I'm imagining, God, for goodness sake, what if she was ever in that situation? And here I'm as a parent, hopefully not in that situation, obviously. But the reason, again, why I bring this topic up, because children have fears and they are scared. And this is exactly what I have heard it being expressed during these practice lockdowns, I'll say, where children are doing what they're supposed to be doing. However, they are thinking because, we all have a tendency to think or overthink. And the anxiety and the stress of that particular situation in that particular moment and what it does to the child's still developing brain. So the words that I hear is, I'm scared. I am observing all the children in my class and their faces. I'm looking at their feet and their hands, what they're doing. And this is during the practice lockdown, which of course sometimes the children don't know that it's a practice one, because that's the whole purpose, is so that way they know exactly what to do. And I'm hearing this and how they are vocalizing that they are scared and they don't know if someone's going to be knocking on a door coming in, and all they know or all they're going through right now in this particular moment is sitting, staying quiet, observing, watching one another, and being in a a very maybe protective character, scared character. And that's exactly, like I said, what I was hearing. I'm hearing these children expressing how scared they are. They don't know what will happen. They are looking at their classmates. They are looking at their teacher to see what the teacher is doing. And they're basing their, whatever the possible next moves are, by observing others. And what I also notice is that schools, or what happens when the children come home, and how some of these events, and even though they're practice lockdowns, contribute towards their mental health and emotional well-being. And what I notice is that sometimes children act out and get mad and frustrated without necessarily knowing that that is tied into their current experience or practice lockdown at school. Now, I'm not saying this is always the case, but bringing this up from certain experiences that I have witnessed, and only to notice that a child may find themselves in a very vulnerable situation where they come home and they are upset, they might act out. And we're talking about little kids, right? So I need anything from up until maybe even 10, 12. Otherwise, I would be saying teenagers. So these children exhibit frustrations, anger, maybe even talking back, whatever it is that they exhibit. But I'm saying this as a mental health provider, is that behind the anger and the frustration, there is a different feeling. And that feeling is being scared, not knowing what will happen, being worried. And that's what I notice. I can't speak for everyone else, but I am speaking for what I'm noticing, what I've seen, what I've heard, and how these children are experiencing these lockdowns and how it will turn out for them in the future when they're adults. And I can't speak for that. I don't know whether or not the world will be more of a scarier place for them in the future. I go based upon my experiences when I was growing up and never having lockdowns. Then I also am aware that I didn't necessarily have the news that I have today. Very limited and maybe not necessarily traumatizing news the way it is today, because it did look different 30, 40 years ago. I'm also aware that children are seeing a lot more today than what we saw maybe many years ago. So I don't know what this will do for them as they are becoming adults, let's say give or take 20 years, 10 years maybe even. But what I am seeing is that children are developing fears and worries and their own stress and anxieties, and it is coming out in many different ways. And yes, they rely probably on social media and iPads and Roblox and whatever other games are there for comfort, because let's face it, this is a big problem nowadays, the technology and the use of social media. And even as far as probably the youngest I have seen is 1-year-old, if not even earlier, already touching the devices in order to watch YouTube or whatever it may be. So that's another growing issue, grown issue already. But going back to the lockdowns, I think what I'm trying to say in this podcast today is that observe your children, because even on a day-to-day basis and what they experience in school, and school is supposed to be safe, right? This is where they go to educate themselves. This is where we trust the teachers to, do their job in educating the children. And of course, hopefully we do that as well after school hours. But what I'm trying to say is that children do experience stressful events, sometimes even in school. Lockdowns are one of them, besides all the other different topics that we might bring up, bullying and physical contact. So, but in reference to lockdown, what I'm saying is, as a parent, pay attention to your child. Have conversations with your child. How was school today? And somewhere in there, your child might say, we had a lockdown today. Okay, great. What was it like? Were you worried? Were you scared? What did you do? How did you hide? What was going through your mind? And exactly I know I'm saying this, but use the words that you would use, that you currently use with your child in order to gain their understanding. What is it that they're seeing? What is it that they're feeling? Because it does come up. And when a child can trust you, they will communicate this with you. I do this with my daughter, not on a daily basis, but if I do see that she is acting a particular way, I just ask what's going on. Sometimes I'm able to explore, sometimes I'm not. I mean, I have to be a mother and not a therapist at home. So, but I do understand how important mental health is, and I understand that children, very young kids, experience, in my belief, a lot more stressors than they did years ago. Children didn't have to worry about lockdowns 40 years ago. Children's primary focus was to play outside, to do schoolwork, to have fun in school, to educate, not to worry about whether or not there is someone that's going to enter a building and whether or not they will die. And that is what I hear, and that is what I see with children. And I hear parents talking about it. And I see it with my own daughter. So she has experienced lockdowns and she has communicated some of these things. So again, just get to know your child and see what's going on. And I think my other conclusion to this is find out with your school and whether or not they offer emotional well-being for children, and what is their approach to managing emotions, to talking about worries and stressors, because schools may have it, but maybe it would be good to explore how they do it, how they proceed with taking care of children and their emotional well-being, because for adults it's one thing. We go through it, but we can rationalize. We know certain things are happening and we might act out, but children are different. They are little and they are very innocent and they are very vulnerable. And sometimes they need us as their guidance to provide them with comfort and not necessarily just constant stressors. So I hope you found this this episode interesting. If so, leave a comment. Be curious about more. Always welcome different topics. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening ahead. Until next time, be well and be safe.